At Lowe's, shop deals on top outdoor power equipment during SpringFest. Save now on the latest in cordless outdoor power with Ego, only at Lowe's. For a limited time only, get $50 off Ego's Touch Drive 21-inch self-propelled lawnmower. And save $20 on select Ego 15 and 16-inch string trimmers. Head to your local Lowe's or visit Lowe's.com and save on all things spring now. Valid through 4/12. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
So, how does it feel when you play Roll Up to Win with Tim Hortons? Buy a hot or cold beverage using the Tim's app and find out. Roll in the app for a chance to win prizes ranging from free coffee and donuts to a Universal Orlando resort vacation or a sweet car. Oh, don't forget the TV. And this year, every roll is a shot at a $1,000 daily giveaway drawing for two $500 prizes. Roll up to win and get treated by Tim's. No purchase necessary. Account registration required. 50 U.S. and D.C. 18 plus entered by 4/2/23. See rules at rolluptowin.com for free entry or full details. Void in Florida and where prohibited.
You're listening to Press This, a WordPress community podcast on WMR. Each week we spotlight members of the WordPress community. I'm your host, Doc Pop. I support the WordPress community through my role at WP Engine and my contributions on torquemag.io. You can subscribe to Press This on Red Circle, iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting apps. You can also download directly from WMR.fm. WordPress 6.2 was recently released, and it's a huge update for WordPress, particularly the way the site editor works. With this release, we're almost at the end of Gutenberg Phase 2, which focused on full site editing through content blocks. So that means that soon WordPress will begin working on Gutenberg Phase 3, which is multi-author collaboration. To talk about the new features in 6.2 and what's next for Gutenberg, we're joined today by Justin Tadlock, a WordPress developer relations advocate via Automattic, who is also a release co-manager for Gutenberg 15.4 and 15.5, which just came out today. Congrats to Justin and the team on that. Justin, let's get started with just your origin story. How did you get into WordPress?
I was just telling somebody this morning, the April 15th, this month will be my 20th blogging anniversary. So blogging for 20 years, but I didn't start with WordPress until a couple of years later. What I wanted to do was be a writer. I want to be a novelist one day, hopefully. But I needed a way to share my work, with the world. And that's really how I found WordPress, because I was tired of just putting all my blog posts in one big giant text file at the time. I needed just something to manage it. And after that, I kind of stumbled into the theme design world and eventually plugin development. I'm trying to think after that, I started my own business, theme and plugin business. And I think it was 2007 or 8, around then. I wasn't great at business. So eventually I moved on to writing for the WP Tavern at one point. And now I'm over at Automattic as a developer relations advocate, just having fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're definitely a fan of your writing over on WP Tavern while you were there. And really cool work that you're doing now with WordPress and, with the Gutenberg team. As I said at the beginning of the show, WordPress 6.2 just came out. And some folks I was telling this news to, and they were like, oh, it's just a small dot number release. It's not a big deal. But this is one of the larger changes that I've seen to WordPress. In particular, when you go into the site editor, it's totally different looking. Justin, in your opinion, what is maybe the most important new feature in 6.2 for agencies and web developers to know about?
Well, it's like you said, the site editor, like the new design there, and we also removed the beta label. So it's sort of official that, hey, it's time to work with site editor, build block themes. I think we still have a long ways to go in terms of the more advanced features that, some developers may need for like custom client builds. But I think 6.2 for me is the release where we can really say it's time to build block themes. Mm-hmm. And in terms of developer features, there's so many just neat things to me. We have just like the smaller things, like you have box shadow supports for blocks. There's the custom CSS, which also comes in handy with the client work if you need to do some cowboy coding and on the fly and add some custom CSS from the editor. Maybe you're on vacation, you don't have your full build stack or something. there's just a ton of smaller, updates, fixes. I mean, it's always continually becoming greater, or the experience is becoming better.
That custom CSS that you're talking about, that's new, I guess. I never touched that aspect, but just the way you kind of mentioned how much easier that is for a developer to come in. And they can add custom CSS to like blocks now through the site editor, right?
Yes, you can add them on a global level, and you can also add them on the block at level too.
Mm-hmm.
Before we had the additional CSS option within the customizer. So part of this is like bringing feature parity to the site editing experience. So that's not split up. I know lots of people used it for quick things. Some people use it for everything, but I do like the idea of putting some CSS for specific blocks because that's more of an atomic design approach.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the management of that is not where I think it should be. Like if you have, just say you want to change your heading blocks to have a certain line height or whatever it may be, then you would have to kind of dig into the editor to find that because there's no central location for all of your CSS.
Mm-hmm.
If we can improve that management experience and the next few releases, I think it'd be one of the best like design features in WordPress.
Absolutely. As just a user, I think one of the things that I first noticed in 6.2 was that new browse mode. Previously, you look at a theme, and if it was an older style theme, you would use a customizer, and now you use the site editor. And when you click on a new block-based theme, there's a whole new way to view it. The way it opens up just feels really sleek and magical. It's part of the browse mode, and it's just the navigation's changed. And the thing that really got me, I didn't see it at first. I kind of had to like look around to learn about it. But the style book feature, which is for some reason the icon's kind of like an open eye. But when you click on that, now you can go in and see previews of all your blocks as they would appear. And you kind of see them by category. So it's all the core blocks and all your third-party blocks. You can see how paragraphs will look, and you can kind of make changes, in this thing. So anytime there's anything that I'm like, oh, I need to change the way this looks, I know exactly I need to go to the style book and make my changes there. And it's super cool that like I can also do it with third-party stuff. So it makes sense that I can change how my media displays. Like, do I want rounded edges or gradients or something like that? And it makes sense that I could edit paragraphs there or lists there. But also my recipe card block for when I share my recipes on how to make Frito pies or something, my calendar widgets, all those things are in there too. And it's super cool seeing them like on the background and kind of as they would look on the site and to be able to tweak them. I thought visually that was one of the most striking changes in 6.2, and it was super cool.
Yeah, the style book is one of my favorite features from both a user's viewpoint and a developer standpoint. We're kind of trying to get away from this, at least in theme design, we're trying to get away from the developer terminology and say creator more, because you really don't have to be a developer to be a theme designer anymore. So let's say it's a great user and great creator feature. I know when I'm designing a theme, there's a lot of like blocks that I don't really test or use. And so having like a quick reference to those via the style book has been a game changer in terms of not having to set up a bunch of demo content for things I don't really need for a particular design, but wanting to make sure they look correctly.
Justin, I don't know if you're on this team or not, but I was talking to Aruba Ahmad last week, and she suggested the style book should have a book icon. And if you have any say over there, I'm hoping maybe they can switch that open eyeball to maybe like a literal book preview or something, a little icon that maybe explains a little more clearly what that does, because it's a powerful tool.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'm not on the design team, but if there's a ticket, I will definitely highlight it.
Yes.
And try to push in any way I can. Because I think a book makes sense there.
Well, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to continue talking to Justin Tadlock, a WordPress developer who is also a core contributor working on Gutenberg. And he's going to tell us about more of the new features that we might have missed on 6.2 and what's coming in 6.3 and some of his predictions for the future of pattern editing. So stay tuned for more Press This.
Time to plug into a commercial break. Stay tuned for more Press This in just a moment.
So, how does it feel when you play Roll Up to Win with Tim Hortons? Buy a hot or cold beverage using the Tim's app and find out. Roll in the app for a chance to win prizes ranging from free coffee and donuts to a Universal Orlando resort vacation or a sweet car. Oh, don't forget the TV. And this year, every roll is a shot at a $1,000 daily giveaway drawing for two $500 prizes. Roll up to win and get treated by Tim's. No purchase necessary. Account registration required. 50 U.S. and D.C. 18 plus. Entered by 4223. See rules at rolluptowin.com for free entry and full details. Void in Florida and where prohibited.
At Lowe's, it's the final days to save on top outdoor power equipment during SpringFest. Save now on the latest in cordless outdoor power with Ego, only at Lowe's. For a limited time only, get $50 off Ego Select Cut 21-inch self-propelled lawnmower. And save $20 on select Ego 15 and 16-inch string trimmers. Don't miss out. SpringFest deals at Lowe's won't last. Valid through 4/26. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
Welcome back to Press This, a WordPress community podcast. I'm your host, Doc, and I'm talking to Justin Tadlock, a WordPress developer relations advocate and core contributor sponsored by Automattic. We just talked about 6.2, which is a huge release. And I think the next thing we're going to start talking about is 6.3. And I think that maybe the starting point for this conversation is Gutenberg is split up into 4 phases. Phase 2 was full site editing by using block-based content. And phase 3 is going to be multi-user collaborative workflows. And it is said that Gutenberg 6.3 is going to be kind of the end of phase 2. Justin, is that right? We are finally finished with phase 2 and ready to start on phase 3?
I don't want to really use the term finish with the customization phase, which is phase 2, because it feels like that's final and there will continually be new improvements and future releases to the customization components like the site editor, template editing, style book, global styles. But officially, like, that phase is ending. And so, like, the big features, hopefully maybe some of those happen in 6.3. We're kind of in that preliminary, like, planning phase 3 stage at this point. There's a great, there's a post on, the Make WordPress core blog that kind of outlines the early talk about what that might look like. But much of the work will be, start during the 6.4 release cycle. And that is collaborative editing and much more. I'm sure there's a lot of different things we're talking. I mean, the most important thing with that will be real-time collaboration. So having 2 or 3 people work, at the same time. We actually talked about this before the show, bids, collaborating via Google Docs. Especially when you're working with a team, you all need to come in, make comments, change text without you completely overriding somebody else's work. One of the most exciting things about collaboration might be the publishing workflow. WordPress is not geared toward, say, news organizations in any real way. There's just a kind of a draft status and then publish. There's no really great flows for that go beyond the basic blogging setup. So I'm really interested in seeing what the community can build with that. There's a few great plugins, I'm sure, that already handle it, but post revisions is going to be a part of that phase. How I don't know, what that's going to look like. We have a very foundational version of post revisions where we have for years. I don't. There are probably many ways that can be improved upon, but I mean, there's so much that's that we can still do. And I'm just excited to see what, all the developers and the WordPress community, come up with.
Yeah, I think you and I both kind of come from news backgrounds, news site backgrounds. So we instantly think about working with an editor, doing collaboration and needing to do it in Google Docs so that other people can kind of edit with us. But I think what's missing or what a lot of people aren't thinking about is this multi-user collaboration, multi-author collaboration isn't just going to be in the post editor. It's going to be that the actual site design in theory could be done collaboratively as well. So you could be working with your client and kind of making changes real time. Not just the post editor. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I heard somebody, it's been a while back, talk about that aspect, working with a client in real time. It could save a lot of back and forth, submitting, design mock-ups and just have them there with you. It's a really great idea.
So is it too early for agencies to start telling their clients about collaboration? If it starts in 6.4, might not really be something that agencies kind of want to share with their users until near the end of Gutenberg Phase 3? Or is it something that's going to kind of maybe work from the start? I'm just kind of predicting here, but I'm just wondering if this is something that agencies should already start telling their users about.
I wouldn't at this point. There's no roadmap yet on when a specific feature will land. At least I envision that this would probably start more with the post editor, rather than say site editing. Just like a first revision of it. That's what I envision anyway. I don't know what it will look like. It's still like planning phase. Let's talk this out right now. So it could be several releases before you're really talking to clients about what that might look like.
You mentioned earlier that one of the big things about 6.2 is Gutenberg Phase 2, or the site editor, is no longer kind of in beta. So that is a thing probably clients and agencies should be talking about, is like, hey, this thing is now like polished, it's ready to go. So that's the conversation maybe they should be having, is about, the site editor if they're not already using it.
Yeah, it just depends on your client, how much freedom they have with design tools. I know some people like to completely lock that down to just content creation for the client. But if you have clients who maybe want to, change a few of those things, sure, and have those conversations, introduce them, create learning material around it. Yeah, I think the site editor is a great tool, but it can have a huge learning curve for somebody who might be unfamiliar with it. So I think that's just going to be on an individual, like, agency basis, dependent on their specific client.
And you were mentioning that there's this before the show, you and I were talking, and you were mentioning there's some really cool things you're excited about that didn't quite make it into 6.2 and will probably be coming out in 6.3, and that kind of like, final chapter before Gutenberg Phase 3 begins. What are some of those missing features that we're going to see in that next release?
Yeah, so one of my favorite features that I've been looking forward to is there's a template types that you can register. You can add to block patterns as a developer. You create a 404 pattern, or that would specifically be for an error 404 page, or maybe you create like 3 or 4 different versions of it with different designs, and then you allow the user to, when they create their 404 template in the site editor, they can choose between those patterns from the start. Like they can just say, add new template, 404, and all of these register patterns show up that are specific to that template. Like the API for that was added in 6.2, I believe. And right now, 6.2, when you go to create a new template, it just gives you like a fallback or an empty, like, blank slate to start from. So hopefully in 6.3, at least it's in Gutenberg 15.5, you can, theme authors can start registering those and having them ready. It can be anything, 404 patterns, single post, archive, whatever you may. They're just specifically tied to the template creation process.
Yeah. And that's that template types feature in the API, which is in 6.2, but the UI isn't finished yet, but it should be in 6.3.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's another good spot for us to take our final break here before we come back and continue talking to Justin. I actually would like to hear more about how developers can use these block patterns. So Maybe we'll talk about that when we come back. Stay tuned for more Press This with Justin Tadlock.
Time to plug into a commercial break. Stay tuned for more Press This in just a moment.
Welcome back to Press This, a WordPress community podcast. I'm your host, Doc, and I'm talking to Justin Tadlock, a WordPress developer relations advocate and a core contributor sponsored by Automattic. Justin, it's been really fun talking to you today, and I know you were just talking about block patterns and how agencies can use them, or how developers can use them. As a blogger, I'm not using block patterns that often. They just don't come up that often for me. And I'm kind of looking to understand more about how developers who work with clients could maybe use these patterns in interesting ways. Because I guess I'm used to all this work being done up front to get the site to look good. And I'm just not quite grokking the long-term benefits that could come from working, with a block pattern. If you were an agency, what would you be telling me as a user about the beauty here?
Yeah. I think patterns are super useful outside of the blogging world for business websites across the board, because you can, as a developer or designer, you can create kind of a specific set of like starting points. So let's say if you want to add, let's say you're a restaurant and you want to add like a specials menu or something on a new page, or you can just, your developer can design this pattern. You can just stick it in through the pattern inserter and then just change the content without having to, create the layout aspect of that, which can be complicated if you're using like columns and, row or in group and stack blocks, whatever it may be. So like patterns right now are very much starting points for adding an advanced design that you can obviously do with the block editor, but you can't, that is harder to do for a non-technical user. I think in the long term, what we're really missing is for patterns, once a pattern is inserted into the editor, it's no longer a pattern, it is just blocks. What we're missing is the ability to update those patterns from a developer perspective. For example, I had somebody mention recently that they had a client with 30 landing pages that each individually had the query loop block that was all in 3-column grids. And they needed to go in and update every one of those query loop blocks to be 4 columns. And instead of doing that just in one pattern, they had to do it on the page because they had already been inserted. So there's no way to update all those instances yet. So we need something that's in between patterns and say reusable blocks, like a middle ground there. But I think from outside of an agency perspective, maybe a theme shop. I think theme shops can really lean on patterns a lot because that's a big, it's a selling point. These are your bullet points. Like here are the awesome, you can build any kind of site. We have patterns for those types of sites. I think those are the things that you would sell as a theme shop now. Like these, say you want to do a pattern set for restaurants, maybe a pattern set for a salon or a wedding site. And you could do this all on build one master theme or whatever it may be, and sell the extras. Of course, I'm not in the theme shop game anymore. So I'd like to see what more and more people who are in that world are going to do with them now.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And, as you kind of mentioned, being able to change these patterns later, but have them, not have to go and change each one individually. That's something you can do in a block pattern that you wouldn't be able to do with I'm trying to remember the customized block, but that is something you could do with a block pattern, is go in later and kind of change something and it'll globally change for previous versions.
Well, that's the problem right now. That's the problem that needs to be fixed, is the global changing of all the patterns, while still maintaining the content that the user may have, altered. We're not quite there yet. That's not just my hope, but a lot of theme authors I've talked to, that is one of the big feature requests. So I'm making sure I'm getting it out there. Everybody who's ever talked to me about that, I just mentioned it a lot, or I mentioned it on the podcast. So
I think that's a great spot for us to wrap up. To learn more about what Justin is working on, you can follow him on Twitter at Justin Tadlock. Justin, I really appreciate you joining me here today, and I appreciate the folks who tuned in and listened. If you have any questions for us at Press This, you can also reach us through Twitter at TheTorqueMag, or you can find previous episodes of Press This on torquemag.io, as well as on WMR.fm. Remember, you can subscribe on Red Circle, iTunes, Spotify, or download directly from WMR.fm. I'm your host, Doc Pop. I support the WordPress community through my role at WP Engine, and I love spotlighting members of the community each week on Press This.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of WebmasterRadio.fm's management or sponsors. Any rebroadcast or redistribution without authorized consent of WebmasterRadio.fm is prohibited.
It's Spring Black Friday at the Home Depot, which means it's time to get your outdoor spaces ready so you can enjoy more this season. Right now, you can get the Stylewell Park Point 4-piece patio set at a new lower price of $3.99. With its stain-resistant cushions and modern relaxed styling, it's the perfect centerpiece for your porch, deck, or patio, whether you're looking for sunny lounging or evening gathering. Hurry into the Home Depot to get the Stylewell Park Point patio set at a new lower price, just $3.99. Shop Spring Black Friday savings at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
At Lowe's, it's the final days to save on top outdoor power equipment during SpringFest. Save now on the latest in cordless outdoor power with Ego, only at Lowe's. For a limited time only, get $50 off Ego Select Cut 21-inch self-propelled lawnmower. And save $20 on select Ego 15 and 16-inch string trimmers. Don't miss out. SpringFest deals at Lowe's won't last. Valid through 4/26. Selection varies by location while supplies last.